I've always been skeptical of astrology, but I also believe that anything lasting thousands of years deserves a second look, so I decided to learn more about it.
In old medical books, you can see the body of a person and they have the symbols of the zodiac on the parts of the body because every sign rules an area of the body. And this has been around since ancient times when medicine was created.
Today's guest is Carmen Turner Schott, a licensed clinical social worker, trauma therapist, and astrologer who's been studying astrology since she was 16.
I am using astrology as a tool, just like, you use any, a psychological tool, like Myers-Briggs or four lenses. I'm trained in all those personality tools. They're all the same kind of concept.
She specializes in the 8th and 12th houses, the darker, more hidden corners of the chart, tied to trauma, transformation, and the subconscious. Through her work, she bridges ancient symbols with modern psychology and helps people make sense of their inner world in ways traditional tools often miss. I came in doubtful, but I'm here to listen, learn, and maybe leave with a new perspective. Carmen, welcome to the Grateful Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm very excited to learn from you because, as I mentioned before, I've never really dove into the depths of astrology. I've never learned enough to, I think, make my own opinion. It's always been a kind of, that stuff, like put it off to the side.
Yeah.
What do you think makes so many people have this predisposition to doubt astrology?
Yeah. Well, I think some of it goes back to religion, I know I was not raised. I didn't even know what astrology was. And when I was in high school, I had some unexplained experiences happen to me that opened my mind that there's more to what I'm being taught and told. And I'll just tell you, I had a glowing ball of light in my doorway when I was 16. And my mother, thank goodness, she saw it too, because no one would have believed me. And I was like, Mom, I'm like yelling from my bed. I was scared to get up. It was floating there. It was like a yellow, watery orb. And of course, I was terrified because, I'm 16. I don't know what's going on. I just came back from a basketball game, and I finally yelled for my mother, and she saw it. And after that, I'm like, okay, what was that? Was it an angel? Because I believed in angels. And I started studying the pyramids and all these different religions. And I got my first astrology book that year when I was 16, and I had no idea what it was. I bought a little book about Virgo because my sun sign is Virgo. That's all I knew. Okay, I'm born August 26th. I'm going to look this up. And when I started researching this was 1993, I started realizing, okay, this is very accurate to my personality. How is this so true? I was a worrier. I was an overthinker. I was a perfectionist. All these traits was what it said Virgos were. And I'm like, okay, why? How is this so accurate? And it was really a research thing for me, like to learn more. And I didn't understand why it was accurate at the time. And now I say it's energy. And I do believe that because, we have the universe, we have all these planets, we know the moon affects the tides of the ocean. Our body's made up of mostly water. And I started researching the full moon and talking, police officers and ER docs and crisis workers. And they're like, our busiest time of the year is during the full moon. And I started just learning all these things about energy. And astrology just validated me. So I started doing it for fun, doing people's charts and using it as a tool of self-awareness, because I believe that knowing yourself and understanding other people, their basic personality traits is what I use it for. It helps you get along better. It helps you at work. It helps your family, helps you as a parent. And I would do this in graduate school. I was getting my master's in social work, and I was doing astrology charts on the side, and everyone was like, how do you know this? How is it so accurate? I'm like, it's a science. I didn't create this. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not a psychic, or anything like that. I am using astrology as a tool, just like, you use any, a psychological tool, like Myers-Briggs or four lenses. I'm trained in all those personality tools. They're all the same kind of concept. And when I started seeing the similarities, I'm like, this is great. But at first, I'll admit, I felt like it was wrong to be doing it when I first started because I was raised Christian and I'm still a Christian astrologer. And I had to go through my own struggles with that, like judgment and criticism from family or friends, or hiding the fact that I believed in astrology. And I hid it a lot. People really didn't know. I was very private about the fact that I believed in it. And and now though I'm out, everyone knows now. But because I'm writing books and everything. But even
Yeah.
at my normal job, people knew that I was sensitive and intuitive and that I was open-minded, to dreams, and I love dream interpretation, and I was just very open-minded when people would share things with me. I'm like, "No, I believe that." People would tell me their secrets, and their strange experiences, and I would not judge them because when you experience something that you can't explain, then it changes you. And that orb in my doorway, um, I don't know what that was. And so I believe it was an angel, spirit guide, whatever. So it just made me believe more that there's a purpose to life. And I'm kind of glad I saw it now, because it changed my whole life. If I wouldn't have saw that, I don't know if I'd be an astrologer right now. I don't know if I would have, became a social worker. But I've been doing astrology and seeing what a powerful tool it is and how much it can help people heal and and transform. And I really use it as a tool with understanding our trauma, how to heal, what our strengths are in our birth chart. Because in our birth chart, everyone has a birth chart. And the way I explain it is this. So at the moment, time, place of your birth, when you're looking up at the sky from the earth, there's 10 planets. We know this in astronomy, right? There's 10 planets, there's 12 constellations, which we know it's astronomy, which is science. So all those planets are in one of the star constellations at the moment, time, place of your birth, and they're in a certain area of the sky, which astrologers break into 12 sections like a pie. And it's like we take a picture of the sky and we put it on a piece of paper, and it's a wheel. So, if you've ever looked on, astro.com, you can go on there and get a free wheel. And it's this wheel, and it's broke. It says 12 houses. It has 10 planets. It has, sorry, my dog is digging. If you hear the noise,
It's all good.
she's over here digging on the carpet. So anyway, it's so distracted. Sorry. So anyway, these 10 planets are in the houses, and they're in a certain star constellation, and that is the map of your soul. And we analyze it. So we say, okay, everyone kind of knows their sun sign. Everyone kind of knows, what day of the month they're born. So anyone born, on December 5th is going to be a Sagittarius. Anyone born that day, even twins. But sometimes the time changes everything sometimes. So the moon moves through each zodiac sign every 2 to 3 days, 2.5 days. So twins can have a very different emotional nature. And I know I've done a lot of charts for twins where they look alike, they have very similar traits, but their emotions are different. One twin's more sensitive, more artistic, more creative. The other twin maybe is more athletic, more assertive, right? Not as shy. So you can see these energies in the personality. And I kind of related to Carl Jung and his archetypes when I studied psychology. And it's even in the Bible.
I'm 18. I host the Grateful Podcast, and I've made a decision. I'm going to hit 100,000 downloads of my podcast before I leave for college on August 31st. I don't care how crazy it sounds. I'm all in. Every single day, I'll update you on my progress, wins, losses, strategy, doubt, everything. Let's see how far this goes. Follow along if you want to see me pull it off or burn out in the process.
I taught a class, Astrology in the Bible. I got a little ebook called Astrology from a Christian Perspective, because I had some folks online ask me to write a series of articles. They're like, "How are you a Christian astrologer? How's that work?" Well, the three wise men were astrologers that followed the star. In the book of Genesis, astrology is mentioned because it's based on the seasons, tropical astrology. It's based on the seasons of the year. It never changes. It's based on how the sun, it's very much math and science, which I don't like that part of it as much. I like the psychology part. But in the old days, I had to learn how to draw charts by hand. we didn't have computers. So when I was, first doing this, when I was in 19, I would draw everything longitude, latitude. You have to look up and know a little bit of math, know the degrees, and you would draw the symbols and all of that. Now you have computer programs that you put everything in and it pops out your your birth chart. But that's kind of how I started, was because I had something unexplained happen to me and I wanted to understand why, and why I was so different than my family, because I always would dream things and they would happen and no one could explain that to me. And I had it happen all the time in high school, and people in high school kind of knew that I was into dreams and things like that. And I played basketball, I played sports, and I tell stories on the bus, people like, Carmen, you're so weird, but they knew I was open-minded to these things. And they tease me, give me gag gifts and stuff, but I've always been interested in that there's more to life than we always know. And I believe it's
Hmm.
energy. I believe astrology is energy, just like I believe in energy healing. I'm Reiki trained. I mean, I believe that there's more the mind body connection. I believe in that. And astrology actually, and if you look into this, it's something you could research if you want to learn a little more of the science of it. Hippocrates in modern medicine, they were astrologers. Hippocrates said a physician that doesn't know basic astrology is not a physician, but a fool. And in old medical books, you can see the body of a person and they have the symbols of the zodiac on the parts of the body, because every sign rules an area of the body. And this has been around since ancient times when medicine was created. And you can see this, when you meet people. Taurus rules the throat. Sagittarius rules the hips and the thighs and the liver. Virgo rules the stomach and the digestive system. Aries is the head, so they get a lot of migraines. So certain signs are vulnerable to certain health things. That's a whole nother thing called medical astrology that you could spend a whole lifetime learning, you know. But yeah, so I'm talking a lot. I'll let you ask me some questions.
No, that was very interesting. So how far back does it go? You talk about ancient times.
Well,
Do we
yeah,
know about
back
the origins of astrology?
Yeah, I mean it's back in, since, I mean, even the Dead Sea Scrolls, like the Greeks, I mean the Romans, all of the mythology, it's in different forms throughout, but one of the most ancient, is in India, Hinduism. I mean, they Vedic astrology is what they call it, and it's been around forever, and it's in their myths, it's in their teachings. I mean, it's so powerful, Hellenistic astrology. I mean, it's a whole science. And
Hmm.
there's so much about astrology that you can learn. It's not just pop astrology, like we see on TikTok and social media. I mean, you can get degrees in this. You can get a degree at Kepler University College of Astrology, which I'm a faculty member there. You can get a degree in the history of astrology and learn all how it all came, how it changed through history. It's pretty amazing. And one of the things I always were, I wasn't Catholic, but my husband is. And when we lived in Germany, we would go to all these churches all over Europe and stuff, and I would see the zodiac symbols in the churches. And I'm like, why are the zodiac symbols in the churches? No one could explain this to me. And even in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from, there's like the St. Louis Cathedral, and the four fixed signs of the zodiac are on a statue by Jesus in the church. And the fixed signs are Taurus and Scorpio and Aquarius and Leo. And their astrological symbols are in churches all over the world. I've seen them on the floor, on the ceiling. And that's because, and I've also, read that in ancient times in Israel, the money used to have the signs on the money. There was the 12 signs on the floor of the temple. And it kind of goes back to the 12 sons of Jacob, the 12 disciples. There's 12. 12 is a special number. There's 12 archetypes that have kind of been through history, which are personality traits of each of the sons of, the disciples had different personalities. Same with the 12 sun signs. So it's all kind of created and intertwined. But because of religion and different, faiths, when the Catholic Church when all, Protestants, when Lutheranism, Martin Luther broke, and then all the other Christian churches started their own ways, things changed a little bit. But I think the Catholic Church, they say they have the biggest astrological library in the world is at the Vatican. This is what I was told. And I went to the Vatican, and I was wanting to see it, but of course, they didn't show you that, but you get a tour. But they say the Pope even has his own astrologer. This is what a lot of people
Interesting.
tell me, because in ancient times, the Pope had an astrologer. I mean, that's how they did. They watch the stars, and if you think about it, now we know what an eclipse is. We know scientifically what's happening, but in ancient times, even Native American culture, they didn't know what was happening. It was like an omen. Like, it was bad when the sun went dark. They didn't know what it was. Now we know what it is, and we can track them, and we can see how the planets in astrology do affect the weather. They affect life on Earth. And I always relate it back to the moon. The moon affects the tides of the ocean. And that's why, how would the moon not affect us and animals and everybody on Earth? It's very scientific to me. You know what I mean? And I know I feel it when there's a full moon, which actually is coming up this week. There's a full moon Thursday in Capricorn. I can feel more emotional, and people are like more sensitive. They may not sleep as well. They may be a little bit more irritable, restless. It affects us. But if, I would say the quickest way to convince a skeptic that astrology is true is to do their birth chart. I've had a lot of skeptics come to me and want me to do their chart, or people at work. And they're like, okay, Carmen, I don't know why, but this is completely me and accurate. I'm like, you don't need to know why. Just use it as a tool of self-awareness and take from it what helps you. Like I use it as a strength. Like, what are your strengths? What careers and talents do you have? The birth chart can show that. And that's what I focus on. How can you be resilient? How can you use your personality traits of your birth chart to overcome obstacles that happen, or understand why certain things happen and what you're meant to learn from it and what your soul is here to master and do. So it's like a sense of destiny. And I use that to give people hope. And it's part of my counseling, what I do with folks, just to help them understand themselves better.
Yeah. So when I was reading some skeptic articles before this to kind of educate myself, a lot of the criticism was around confirmation bias. And so people propose that astrology is purely confirmation bias. It's almost like a shotgun where it like shoots out a bunch of pellets, and a few are bound to relate to the person that's receiving that, if that makes sense. How
Yeah.
would you respond to that?
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree. And it's only because now, when I first started out, I was open-minded that, okay, I don't know if this works or not, right? But I've done thousands of charts for people. And so I have the experience to know how powerful of a tool this is to help people. And if I wouldn't have done thousands of charts to see, and I'm not telling them, and anything I say to them that doesn't fit, they tell me, not everything I say is 1%, but about 99% of it, you can't, it's very precise. It's not like, I think pop astrology, like just sun sign astrology, which is what most people know and talk about. It can feel that way, like, well, all Sages are this, or all Leos are
Right.
artistic,
Mm.
all Virgos are perfectionist, or, but there's so much more to it. The sun is just one little part of your personality. That's what you show the world. But when you do a full chart and look at all of the placements, all the planets, all the aspects with someone, and you dig deep, no one can deny how accurate it is. It's to the point where I believe it should be very careful using astrology. It shouldn't be something that you do to rely on to make all your decisions. I tell people, just because the horoscopes are made up based on energy, sun sign, and it's like a blanket. Like everyone born August, this is your horoscope. That's not what real astrology is, what I do, psychological astrology. It's
Right.
deeper than that. It's deeper than that. But a lot of people get into astrology based on, reading their little horoscope in the paper and all that. That's not what I do. I counsel people. I see different energies. I tell them, okay, these are some traits, these are some strengths. They ask me questions. It's like a therapy tool, really. But out there in the world, you have a lot of people on TikTok and then even AI. People are going on AI and they're telling, well, AI said this. And I'm like, AI is not 100% accurate about
Right.
astrology. I mean, it only knows what the human people have put in there to train it, So I'm like, go to a real person. Don't just trust what you put into AI, about something in astrology, because it's not always accurate. And I tested it out and I saw that it was given some misinformation, but people are using AI. People are just, they know their basic sun sign. But if you've never had a full reading, like a consult with an astrologer, that's a psychological astrologer is what I recommend. Because some astrologers don't want to do counseling. They don't want to hear your problems. They're not there to dig deep and help you heal traumas and talk about your childhood. And, they're not a licensed therapist, so they don't want to go there. Right. But as a licensed therapist, I use both.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Grateful Podcast. I'm interrupting to let you know that it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with someone that you think would enjoy it, or leave a review down below so I can learn what I can do better and what I'm doing well with this podcast. It's a passion project and I really want it to turn into something that helps people everywhere. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Some astrologers just want to do location astrology. That's their specialty, which is where's the best places for me to live. You can see this astrologically based on your birth chart, location, different transits of the planets like Venus, Jupiter. What lines are they on? We call it, astro maps. So, you can see, okay, it'd be great for me. I know I have good luck with my work in England. Well, I'm not living in England, right? And, but you can see, but it's funny because I ended up getting a British publisher and got a lot of, and I never thought I would do that. And I'm selling, my books are selling better with the UK publisher. So it kind of makes sense, when you start looking at this. But some astrologers are like, oh, I don't want to hear problems. I just want to, tell them where the best locations for them to live are. And that's it. Some astrologers are medical astrologers. They just want to focus on health and diet and help people be healthier in their bodies. So there's so many different specialties, just like a therapist, you know. And it's good to refer people, because like I'm not an expert in medical astrology. I know the basics, but if someone really is having health issues, I'll refer them to another astrologer that is an expert at that. Or it's like with social work, I'm not an expert in eating disorders, but I'm an expert in trauma therapy. So I'll refer them to another social worker, that's an expert. So it's knowing what your skill set is and using it and making sure you do referrals and things to help people get help.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was a very important segment because you realize that there's, just as with anything, your TikTok information is extremely surface level. I mean,
Yes.
if you get all of your news of politics from TikTok, you'll have a very skewed perspective. So it's
Yes.
applying that idea to different aspects, including astrology, right? And if you actually want to learn and not just have a surface level view of something, you need to dive in, you need to learn about it, talk to someone that knows what they're doing and has studied it, because it is a studied thing.
Absolutely.
So one thing that I found very interesting about your story is that you worked 25 years for the Air Force, a system rooted in very in logic and a lot of things that I would find kind of contrary to what the stereotype of astrology is. So, how did you balance your astrological work with the Air Force?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I had two separate jobs. So in the Air Force, I did sexual assault prevention and response. I was, what's called a SARC or victim advocate, and I started out at in that field where it was 24/7. You hold a phone. You provide support and response to victims of sexual assault that are in the military, that are in the Air Force, civilians. I did that for so many years at many bases across even in Germany. And I also did family advocacy. So in the Air Force, where I worked with training commanders, training airmen, military on child abuse, signs and symptoms, domestic violence, signs and symptoms, a lot of training. I did a lot of training, a lot of teaching was my job too. But for the past 10 years, I oversaw a bunch of people that were out there at all these different locations responding 24/7 to help people in a crisis. So I was like the policy guidance. I was the person. So the thing about me is I am very logical and practical because I'm a Virgo. So I'm very organized and I'm strategic and I'm always thinking ahead and I'm always efficient getting things done. And so I like the structure of the military because there's rules, there's policies, there's procedures, and you follow them. And so, I did that and for my whole career, and I was a social worker, federal employee, so to speak. And then on the side, on the weekends and nights, I would do astrology. Yep. And it
Nice.
was
Well,
totally
that's a
separate. I didn't, now there was one time, this is kind of neat, back in 2002, I was living in Germany and I actually worked in the mental health clinic and at a base. And we had a psychiatrist that was an astrologer that was very interested in this. And he heard that that I'm talking astrology, and he's like, he was surprised I knew, and I knew just as much as he did. So he was talking to me. He'd come down at lunch, and he was sitting in my office. We had a whole therapist, psychologist, social workers, all working there that were in uniform. They were military, and he wanted me to do all the charts of the therapist in the clinic as an offsite. And I did, and they didn't know anything about it. And I did their charts. I did a presentation. I taught them the basics and they all were really amazed. They're like, this is so accurate. So that was a unique experience where who I really was acknowledged within that system. But usually no one knew, except my immediate coworkers, that wanted to ask me, Carmen, why am I feeling so emotional? Is there a full moon? They joke me, because they knew that I,
Mhm.
kind of this, but I didn't talk about it a lot at work, or with my clients, or my teams or things like that. But I used it because I used it as a tool to help me understand my people, my coworkers, my colleagues. And I always said that I'm someone that can get along with anyone. I can adapt to people because I know them. Once I know their chart, I know how to get along with people. I know what they need. I know their like why they act the way they do, and I don't take it personal. And I'm able to like, hey, you need to be the one up there on stage talking because you are natural, and I would encourage your strengths. So that's what I would do at my normal job, and it would help me understand my bosses, like
Yeah.
people that I'm working with, and I would adapt to that, and um I did it my whole life was serving others and helping people, especially in crisis intervention, and it's a high burnout field. I was tired. I wasn't doing what brings me joy, and I realized I need to do something that I love to do, which is this, and write more books and keep doing what I'm doing, but have the energy to focus on it. So I did an early retirement this year. And now I'm like a true entrepreneur and working for myself, doing what I love because life's short, and I'm going to be 50. And I'm like, I'm halfway through my life. I want to do what I love to do. And so I want to do what my passion is, which is teaching about this and writing. And so I just went through a major change and transformation, and I'm just still adapting to this. So, but yeah, it's kind of like that chapter in my life is now done. And my friends still call me from work and they're like, Carmen, you got to come back. Like, yeah, because I was around a long time and I was the one that people would come to for help, because I knew all the answers, because I worked there for so long, and I know the system. I knew the lingo. It's a lot of acronyms, and a lot of crises that I dealt with, that I knew what to do. And so one of my friends, she still can't accept that I left the government. And she's like, you got to come back. She called me yesterday. I was thinking, you got to ask for your job back. I'm like, I don't want to come back. I'm retired. Like, I'm not old enough to draw it yet, but I'm, retired. And so I do miss it. I miss the people. So I was a military spouse for 20 years. My husband
Hmm.
served in the Air Force, and we moved all over the world. I just followed him all over and have to change my job everywhere I went. So I had a lot of different opportunities and different jobs as a social worker. Um, but ever since I met him, I've been doing astrology. And but he's born the same day as me, which is the only reason I met my
Wow.
husband on a blind date. So it's kind of a neat story. I told my friend I'd always dated Aries and it never worked out. And my friend was in the Air Force and I was 23 years old. And she's like, I want to set you up with someone, and she was a nurse. So she said, and she was going to set me up with my husband. And I'm like, find out his birthday, because I need to know. And so she said, he's born the same day as you. I'm like, no way. But he's 5 years older. So I met him and we got married 3 months later. And now we've been married 26 years. But he's born the same day as me, but he's 5 years older. And we are a lot alike. We're both very much similar personalities. And then our daughter was born August 25th. She's 21 now. And she is also very much personality like us. We're all Virgos in my house. So. Yeah.
Very interesting. Wow. Yeah. Same birthday. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so it seems to me, like hearing your story and all of this, that you've always used astrology as a very good tool, as a supplement to many things, and it's really enhanced your life. It's brought it up a level. And that makes me curious about how we can do that, in how most people can do that in our lives, and how you do it in therapy work, right? And congratulations for moving into an entrepreneurial stage in your life. I know that's a lot of what you've been working on. I'm 18. I host the Grateful Podcast, and I've made a decision. I'm going to hit 100,000 downloads of my podcast before I leave for college on August 31st. I don't care how crazy it sounds. I'm all in. Every single day, I'll update you on my progress, wins, losses, strategy, doubt, everything. Let's see how far this goes. Follow along if you want to see me pull it off or burn out in the process. How does astrology fill in where psychology can't in your work?
Wow. That's a great question. So I'll tell you this. When I first started doing people's charts, when I was in graduate school, I realized that 1 hour of doing a chart with someone was as powerful as 8 sessions of psychotherapy. 8 sessions. Like it's so much deeper, and it helps people in such a quick amount of time than just going to a normal counselor 8 times. And when I saw that and witnessed that myself, where people would cry, people would release something or finally understand something with their family or their childhood, or something that happened to them, they healed like instantly. Within an hour, they were like better. And where I've done counseling with people, where I didn't bring, where it wasn't for astrology, because I didn't force it or bring it into normal private practice when I used to do private practice, but sometimes it would come up. But it would take a longer time for them to heal. And I didn't pull that tool out, because that wasn't my role, to force or bring out a tool. Now, if they start telling me they know they're a Leo and they bring it up, that's different. But I kind of didn't bring it in all the time, and I realized, wow, I wish I could do their chart. I wish I could ask them what time they're born. I would just know their birth date and year, so I would know a little bit, but I couldn't. I would know in the back of my mind some things about what their energies or personality was. But I believe that we need to try different innovative ways to heal, because even with trauma, we know trauma, the body holds trauma. And there's a lot of research now how the mind body connection, and Yoga is now been proven to help release trauma. It's even more effective than talk therapy. Okay. And that's kind of how I feel about astrology too. It's so deep and it's just another tool like yoga or breathing exercises or grounding exercises for trauma survivors, right? And then there's EMDR, right? Where eye rapid movement therapy, where a lot of therapists use that doesn't work for everyone. A lot of people that have trauma come to me, and I use astrology, and they always tell me that this was more helpful than all the years that I was doing EMDR, you know, and that's why I stick with it because I know that I'm helping people, and that's what I use it for is to help people and to see that them improve, and I would love to write a book about astrology for social workers, as a tool. And I might do that someday. The thing with astrology that hurts astrology as a practice, as a field, and this is what I'm trying to help do right now for Kepler College of Astrology. I'm working on a ethics and astrology course. So it's ethics for astrologers because there isn't a licensing board for astrologers that are doing counseling. You can get certified as an astrologer. It's more of a skill. But like licensed clinical social workers, you can't do counseling without a clinical license or a psychologist. You have to renew it every 2 years. Astrology doesn't have a lot of research. That's how psychology used to be that way. It was like the pseudoscience. Psychology was kind of where astrology is now, and it made itself known by research. So I'm trying to do more research about the things I see, which I published some research in the NCR Journal about people that have 12th house planets. There's certain patterns in life things and personality things that they have. And I randomly did 100 charts. I asked 100 people that I didn't know to send me their chart. I asked them questions. 99.9 said yes to all five patterns. How that's science. So that's a quantitative study. So, but we don't have a lot of research in astrology where we can say, look at this research. This is accurate. So, but we're trying to get there. And I think we're going to see astrology get bigger and bigger and more research based in the future. That's my prediction because it is so powerful and people want to show when all astrologers know it works, but how you got to prove it to the scientific community,
Yeah.
like you said, skeptics, and I have with my 12th house and 8th house research. I know it. I know. And people, like I have it right here as a quantitative research study. And it's amazing. People would share their stories with me, email me. They would validate all the patterns. And then I would have their chart. And I use that and to show, like dreaming something that happens. How many of you have ever had a dream that happened? Out of 100 of them, all of them said yes. I don't know any of these people. Okay. So that's how you start researching this to show that it's not just your sun sign and woo woo.
Yeah.
We got to do some research and get it like psychology has. They've now established themselves. You know.
So a few of my top listeners on the show are psychologists and psychiatrists.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so I'm guessing I'll be having conversations with them after this releases. But one of the things you said earlier that I have some questions about is like healing in an hour. And I think that what they will say is that like that quick healing, it would be best um, put with maybe some therapy after that, and some like psychology sessions to go along with that, because it almost feels like going cold turkey to me. You know what I mean? Like you need to ease into something a little more. So maybe what I'm seeing is there's a potential for a really good collaboration between the two fields
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
astrology and psychology, and I know that's what you do a lot of.
Yeah.
Um, but like some of those sessions where you give someone their chart and then supplementing that with some sessions of regular psychology afterward to help guide someone through that, not just, "Here you go, you get your chart, now off in the world." You know what I mean?
Yeah, usually, follow up and have more sessions, with them. But it's a little different because it's different than traditional therapy, but I'll tell you this, you'd be surprised how many psychologists and social workers believe that there's some truth to astrology. A lot of them secretly believe in it, but they don't say anything about it. I know a lot. A lot of them, they're like, "Yeah, I love it." But I no, they don't know it. They didn't learn how to do it, but they believe that it's true. There's something to it. They're open-minded to it. I was surprised. I knew a psychiatrist, a different one than the one I talked about earlier, and he was a skeptic. And I'm gonna go ahead and tell you the story. I mean, if you want to hear it,
I would love to hear this, yes.
yeah. So I worked in this, it was, I don't want to give too many details, but I worked somewhere and I had a dream about this person and it was a psychiatrist and I didn't know him well and they worked down the hall and I thought, I want to tell him, like make sure he's okay. But I didn't want to freak, it's like, do I tell? Do I not? And I decided not to say anything first. And then I had another dream and it was very specific and it was about their father came in my dream. It's a long story and I don't even know this person, but that tends to happen where I dream about people that are around me. So finally I was with my boss and we were in the car one day and she brought him up and she said, I really feel bad for him. He's an atheist. This is what she told me. He doesn't believe in God. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I sat there and I decided in that moment, I'm going to go down and I'm going to tell him about this dream because what do I have to lose? Because before, I was just a little scared before. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to go down there. So I went down his office, knocked on the door and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Are you doing okay?" I said, I had a couple dreams about you. I dream things, and I said, just checking on you. And he's like, yeah, what did you dream? It was I'm interested. I said, yeah. So I told him, and then, he knew I did astrology and he asked me a little bit about that. But he said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Well, some things happened, let me just say, in his life. And he came down to my office and he said, how did you know? And I said, I dreamed it. And he's like, it doesn't make any sense, but no one knew. And he said, you knew. And he was really baffled, because
Mhm.
he didn't believe in anything. He told me, I don't believe in God. And I had to talk with him. And I said, so I met him we're out in the parking lot one day. And I said, so you still don't believe, you're not open-minded at all after this happened? Me sharing this, all this stuff happening in your life. I said, aren't you, how would I know something in the future unless it was destiny? Unless there was a purpose. He's like, Carmen, it's so weird. Like, I don't know how you knew. It is weird, but I still don't believe in God, he said. And I said, how can you not believe in something though? Because of this experience, he said, I will tell you this, I'm more open-minded that the possibility that there is a higher power. That's what he
Mhm.
said, after what happened. And so that kind of thing, that was powerful. And I found out that he got more, he changed and got more into more open-minded about believing in it's not just the brain, you know, as a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, the brain and body, there's no spirit. When you die, that's it. Some medical people believe that. I don't believe that, and I know a lot of doctors, that don't, like Dr. Moon, there's lots of books where medical doctors have proven that people have had near-death experiences. They've came back, they remember, left their body, that we're a soul. But anyway, I share that story because a lot of times people that are very smart, very scientific, um, it's hard for them to believe or open up to things that are not, it's hard to prove. It's hard
Mhm.
to see the data or it's that research thing with astrology that we need to get there. And
Yeah.
it's becoming a bigger thing in the world. But I think it's going to happen because now you can get degrees in it. You can research astrology. There's universities. A lot of people are teaching it. It's becoming more. um, part of psychology, social work, things like that. But we're using a lot of different things now for trauma healing. Like psychedelics is a thing now. I don't know
Yeah.
a lot about it. I mean, I know they're doing it with veterans,
Hmm.
PTSD. Um, if they're doing that, astrology is much more tame and mainstream, than psychedelic mushrooms. So I think, astrology is more practical of a tool, in my opinion. But, so I'm hoping that someday it'll be, a tool in psychology books. That's what I would hope to
Yeah.
see in the future.
Well, it seems like you're really leading the charge in that way too, with your quantitative studies and all of that. I do agree that if it is going to become more mainstream and more trusted, those are necessary steps it must take. Like LSD has been really, the studies on LSD have been really backed and replicated by some of the top researchers in the world, and that's why it's become mainstream. You like Andrew Huberman, largest scientific podcast in the world, he talks about he has a lot of different podcast episodes with very, very profound and popular scientists who have done studies on it. And I think that's why it's become more mainstream and more trusted, as opposed to something that was half a century ago and really outlawed, right? And
I
so
know, right?
if we want to see that change with astrology, which it seems like it's happening, I think it'll take similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm hoping to see that day. So I love it. It's my passion. I love to teach the basics of it and write about it in a easy, basic way because it is a complex thing. It's
Hmm.
symbolic language. It's all symbols. There's just a lot to it, but anyone can learn the basics and get that personality validation. That's kind of what I
Yeah.
use it for. Yeah.
So one thing that I've seen with astrology is because it kind of gives you, it's almost prophetic in a way, right? It gives you a set of um, traits and like this is you. If you have your chart done and you really do believe in it, I've met some people that have seemed to use it almost as an excuse, right? So if
Okay.
someone is exhibiting a behavior that might be more negative. They're like, "Well, I'm this sign, so it's okay. It's just in my nature." And
Mhm.
almost as an excuse for complacency, for not to
Yeah.
change. Have
Yeah.
you dealt with that at all? And
Oh, yeah.
how do you help change that?
Absolutely. It's like, when I tell people, my daughter and I were talking about this because she used to, she's like question me, she's 21, so she loves to kind of question and she's skeptical. She's interested in what I do, but she's a little bit skeptical of it. But she's like, Mom, it's just an excuse that, they can say this or that. And so she asked me this, but it's like if someone, an Aries are known to be impulsive. They can be impatient. They can have a little bit of a temper. They're blunt. They're straightforward. So, like, well, I'm just an Aries. I just tell the truth. I'm like, yeah, but it's like with anything. Like, you need to control those traits and so you don't hurt people, and be too abrasive, like when you know yourself, you should work on using what you know to help bring peace and harmony in relationships, not it's an excuse like, well, I have a temper and that's just how I am. No, it's
Mhm.
just no. It's like anything. Like even if you don't know astrology and you're just dealing with a couple in couples therapy, it's the same thing. Someone says, "Well, I'm just a worrier, and I'm controlling. Like I'm jealous, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just how I am." Then we use the love languages, use Myers-Briggs,
Right.
we do all this stuff to try to help the couples understand each other and the love and respect, all these different tools with couples. It's the same thing. People um, can use that as an excuse not to change or grow.
Hmm.
And people do that normally, even without astrology. But yeah, some people, they pigeonhole, which is mainstream TikTok astrology now, like
Yeah.
memes, and sometimes they're funny, but I don't allow memes in my astrology groups. I have two Facebook astrology groups, and I don't allow memes. Like people have to post real questions or charts. Like I don't, and there's other groups that it's all memes and it's just a bunch of pop astrology. That's not what I do, but it is funny to see one once in a while because sometimes it's a little truth to it, but it doesn't mean that you stop growing as a person or use your bad behaviors, make excuse for your bad behaviors. It's like anything in life. You got to take responsibility for your actions. And that's what I use astrology for, is that, okay, we know the patterns. We know that this might be how you're reacting in a certain area of life, whether it's career or work, health. You have the ability and the free will to change, and that's why, like, I love Edgar Casey. I used to study a lot of his readings and work. He said astrology is fact, that there's no greater power over man than his own will. And that's what I
Mm.
believe, that we have willpower. We have free will. So just because I'm a Virgo and I worry, yeah, I know that that's in me, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy, and I know that it isn't. So I can do things not to worry, meditate, journal, try to do positive things, positive affirmations, being grateful, thankful, and not worrying, just being in the present moment and not obsessing about the future. It's like basic things that helps me. We all have something in our personality that might be difficult, or we may have a behavior, like Virgos tend to overthink. And then, my daughter, she's like, Mom, you're just labeling me, and now she's older and she's like, Mom, I'm definitely a Virgo. She's like, my friends, like, they're not like me. They don't understand why and it's that anticipation of something new. It goes straight to a Virgo stomach. So she'll get, we all stomach is hurting, nauseous before she has to do something. It's just, everyone has something, in their personality, and astrology can validate it in a way. But we still have the power to change it, to change our bad behaviors or to enhance our strengths, you know, and that's my belief. But
Right.
yeah, you're right. Some people do that. I don't agree with it, but
I mean, but it's not something that's unique to astrology. As you said, people can do
no.
that with the Myers-Briggs, or
Yeah.
in even like you even you even see it with diagnoses of like anxiety or depression. Like that's just the way I am, or stress, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, we definitely do conform to what we've been told about ourselves. But I think that, as you said, it can be used for something greater, which is it gives you knowledge about things about you so that you can learn to embrace those or change those or do what you need to do. Use that knowledge to help enhance your life, not limit it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a tool of self awareness. That's what it is to me.
Amazing. Well, I have really enjoyed getting to learn about it and dive into astrology a little bit deeper. I feel like I definitely am more open now than I was at the beginning of the
Good.
conversation. I definitely understand a lot more. I'd be interested to get my chart done and see what you think
Sure.
about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Send me I need your month, day, year of birth, exact
Yeah.
time, AM or PM, on your birth certificate or whatever your parents remember, and your city, state, country. Email me and I'll send you some things. Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. And so for my listeners listening and curious about it, is there a place that they can go to have their charts done?
Absolutely. You can visit my website, carmenturnerschott.com. And also my Facebook page is Deep Soul Divers Astrology, Carmen Turner Schott. And Instagram is Carmen Turner Schott Author. And just reach out to me on social media or my website. And I have a consultations page. You can write me to book, and I'll send you a booking link. And I can do 60-minute, 90-minute, and just do your basic birth chart, personality birth chart with me. I record it. You also get reports for fun to read that are included, and a
Nice.
birth wheel and things like that.
Cool. I'll link all those in the description of this.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Carmen, thank you very much for this podcast episode, and everybody stay grateful.